Thank you very much to Mountain Partners. Thank you, Connie, for inviting me to tell you a story about the last 20 years. So my name's Jeremy Gilley. I, 20 years ago, was very concerned about the state of the world. I didn't understand the destruction, the starvation, the killing of innocent people. I mean, just making sense of the world, I found very difficult. And I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to see if I could do something. So as a filmmaker, I had an idea to try and create a day of peace. Could I create a day of peace, a day of ceasefire and non-violence, and have that idea voted by every government of the world? And that was my idea. And I set out on that journey to try and create this day of peace. I didn't have any money. I'm dyslexic. I have no qualifications. I think that what you've just talked about failing, it was all about failing. No matter what happened, I was going to document the whole journey. So we began this journey to try and create this day. I traveled the world. Suddenly I was receiving letters from people like Nelson Mandela, from Kofi Annan, from the Dalai Lama, from Shimon Peres, from Amre Musa. I mean, we were going absolutely everywhere. And what I was learning is a day of ceasefire and non-violence, it made sense. A day of global unity, a day of intercultural cooperation, a day when the world comes together as one in the hope that we can lift the level of consciousness around the fundamental issues that humanity faces. A peace day for our children to come together and stand as one in a moment of global unity. And it just got traction. That idea of creating this day got traction till eventually, on the 7th of September 2001, the entire world unanimously adopted and created a peace day at the United Nations General Assembly. It was an incredible thing to watch, and suddenly the world had a day of peace, the 21st of September. Many of your children will know about it. Many people around the world know about it, but there's a few more people that we have to tell. It was interesting when we talk about failure. On the 11th of September 2001, Kofi Annan said to me, "Will you come to the United Nations General Assembly? We will announce to the world that the day is being created." And I was standing there at 8:30 a.m. waiting for that announcement to happen when the first planes hit the building. The announcement was never made. We were evacuated. And I knew in that moment that that was the very reason why we must never give up. That in fact, the failure was actually the light. It was the moment where I realized, no, we've got to keep going. We've got to keep going because that's the reason why we need this day of peace to work. And so I'd made this film about the creation of this day. It was amazing and everyone was in it. And I could hear the cynics saying, well, it's just a day of peace. It's meaningless. Nobody will ever stop fighting. It doesn't mean anything. And that really worried me because when I've been around the world in areas of conflict, I've been to 132 countries in the last 20 years. I've seen things I just wish I hadn't. And when I was in those places, those people were saying to me, there's a life-saving opportunity here. We can deliver humanitarian aid. We can educate children. We can have moments of interfaith government. I mean, there was just so many reasons why it made sense. But the cynic was saying, it's not going to work. You can't climb the top of that mountain. And you know what I mean? I just thought that was the energy. That was the moment when I thought we had to. So I decided that we would go to Afghanistan, to the most complex place in the world, and see if we could get the fighting to stop. Could I get the Taliban to agree to a day of ceasefire where nobody would be killed? And after years of work, NATO, ISAF, Karzai, the UN system, civil society, and indeed the Taliban agreed to not kidnap or kill anyone on that day. And as a consequence of that, we were able to mobilize 10,000 vaccinators, UNICEF and WHO, and take those vaccinators into areas that you couldn't normally go for fear of being kidnapped and killed. And the fighting stopped, and 1.4 million children received the polio vaccination as a consequence of that ceasefire. It was incredible. And we had documented it. I knew at that point that there you go. It was possible and it could work. And at that moment, I then decided that what we needed to do was tell the world about that day. So stage one was creating a day of peace for the entire world. Stage two was proving that it could work. And stage three, where we are right now, is we need to tell every person on the planet that the day exists. And we started doing that. And we started doing that with all sorts of, organizations. And this is the day of peace happening. This is in Afghanistan when the 4.5 million people. And this is when we started telling people of the world. So what I did, because we didn't have any money, is I started to go to corporations. Oh, shit. Sorry. Sorry, I didn't mean to swear, sorry about that. So I started going to corporations and asking them, listen, can you back this? Because there's two things that needed to be happening. We needed to tell a lot of people, but we also needed to fuel the machine. And this licensing deal, this is where it first started right here with Coca-Cola. After years of work, we managed to get the Peace One Day logo on the Coca-Cola bottles, and we've done that in many, many countries of the world. Here you can see Jochen Zeitz speaking tomorrow. First of all, it was Adidas that backed us. Then it was Puma that backed us, and then Jochen made peace with Adidas and Puma. That was a massive story. And this was how, the institutionalization was happening. Last year, we did a huge concert in Las Vegas. Skype got behind it. I mean, make love, not war. That was a £72 million spend in 54 countries, led by Paul Polman, Axe and Links, that opened the Super Bowl. I mean, incredible stuff going on. So this is Whopper, McDonald's and Burger King. I think it was £125 million of earned media for a really low spend that they gave us. I mean, the interesting thing about backing pod as businesses, no matter how big or small, is that the workforce gets really engaged. The consumers become engaged. The people who then might want to work for you are really pleased that you're doing something really great. And most importantly, press and social media is generated, which of course is part of their marketing spend that they're doing extremely well on. So that was the way in which we started to tell the world about the day. And we started to work out different properties, whether it was, football, whether it was dance, whether it was events, whether it was social media, whether it was set for peace, whether it was filmmaking, whether it was education, whether it was art. That's what we do at Peace One Day. We have to tell lots of people about this day, and we create all of these different properties. So that was where we got to in 2016. McKinsey's were done. I know there's some people here who are ex-McKinsey people, and I've met you, and it's lovely to see you all. But McKinsey started looking at our data. So what does it all really mean to have created a day, to prove that it can work in places like Afghanistan? But what was really happening globally? Well, in 2016, when we measured very accurately, we told 2.2 billion people in the course of a year. 2.2 billion people were informed. 940 million people in 2016 are completely aware of the day. And the most important thing about it all is that 16 million people were less violent. Because the thing that you need to know is violence, only 5% of the violence today will happen in our homes, only 5% of the violence today will happen in the war zone. 95% of the violence today will happen in our homes, communities, schools, and places of work. That's where the violence is happening. And so that's a really interesting thing when you talk about a day of ceasefire and non-violence. There's an opportunity for young people to become engaged in our homes, in our communities, in our schools, and our places of work. Really, really interesting. Peace isn't over there. Peace isn't in an area of conflict. It's something that we can all participate in. So that was very exciting. What I'd like to do now is run a film. I'm conscious of time, and I'm moving as fast as I can for you, Connie. But can we just play a film? I just want to show you something that will bring what I've just said to life. Thank you very much.
My name's Jeremy Gilley. I'm a documentary filmmaker and the founder of Peace One Day. In 1998, I decided to make a film about peace. Then I realized there was no day of peace with a fixed calendar date. That was it. I was going to try and establish the first ever annual Peace Day, a day of global ceasefire and non-violence, a day for everyone to become involved in the peace process. The office was a spare room in my mum's house. I had a computer, a telephone, and a handful of committed friends. We were young and full of dreams. Over the next 3 years, I traveled the world to build the case, working with the United Nations, governments, Nobel Peace Laureates, humanitarian organizations, and those living in conflict zones.
If there is a cessation for a day, then it gives us an opportunity to move supplies safely through places that are otherwise difficult.
Any moment that we can give the combatants to pause, to think, and reflect on what they are doing to their own people and to the environment will be a great achievement, and I would support it 100%.
I think the great thing is at least we've done something for the next generation.
In September 2001, the member states of the United Nations unanimously adopted a Peace Day, a day of ceasefire and non-violence, the 21st of September, annually. It was incredible.
Was originally brought to our attention by a UK-based organisation, Peace One Day.
It is so decided.
The next challenge was to prove the day could work by stopping the fighting in a conflict zone so humanitarian action could take place. An old friend, Jude Law, wanted to help. After 3 years of campaigning, that goal became a reality in Afghanistan, where in 2007, due to everybody's hard work, particularly the United Nations, peace day agreements were reached with all sides, including the Taliban. As a result, 10,000 health workers were able to vaccinate 1.4 million children against polio on Peace Day. The UN also announced in Afghanistan on the day that there was a 70% reduction of violent incidents. It was amazing.
The cynic used to say, what difference does a day make? What I saw in Afghanistan was, well, the difference is life or death.
من به خاطر صلح صلاح خود را به دایاک تسلیم میکنم. شما برای صلح چی میکنید؟
Afghanistan was the launch pad that Peace Day needed. Approximately 95% of the world's violence happens in our homes, communities, schools, and places of work. So we actually all have a role to play in decreasing violence. From 2007, we've dedicated ourselves to institutionalizing Peace Day through global awareness initiatives and strategic partnerships. Providing free educational tools, building relationships with corporations, NGOs and others, creating sport, music and dance initiatives, holding Peace Day celebrations featuring major artists. These are just some of the ways we spread the message.
As CEO of a company which believes deeply in finding sustainable ways to do business, this struck a chord with me.
On September 21st, we will be celebrating peace on that one day.
It's a massive cause. I'm going to do it, and I want you to do it too.
In 2002, on the first Peace Day, with a fixed calendar date, we monitored a few activities. By Peace Day last year, over 1 billion people are now aware that the 21st of September is Peace Day, with millions of people involved in peaceful action.
C'est une journée qui vient à point nommé et je pense que c'est une graine qui est semée pour la paix.
The institutionalization of Peace Day is working, and it will continue with your support. Together, we can make this day a day of global unity, a day of action, a day when lives are saved.
I do see the possibilities of change, and I think people need to be lifted at times. Hope is a great energizer.
So what will you do to make peace on the 21st of September? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and get involved. By working together, there will be peace one day.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you. So the next phase of our journey is for the next 5 years. So we're now mapping out until 2025. We're extremely excited about that period. There's a sort of a moment of transformation. We're working with Interbrand, which is a huge global agency. We're about to completely rebrand Peace One Day in our 20th year. So it's a big moment for us. And we're now starting to go into technology. I mean, we just absolutely have to. The whole organization is thinking about this in a major way. And it starts with something like this. So on Peace Day, the 21st of September, we will try to measure a decrease of the hatred and the racism and the horrible language that's used on the internet on the 21st of September. And we'll measure it. And I'd love to tell you who the person is, the team is, that's going to measure it, but I'm not allowed to announce it at this point. But next time I'm sure we can, and that'll be very exciting, because we know we can. When we did what we did in Afghanistan, the United Nations Department for Security and Safety announced a 70% reduction of violent incidents across the country. That's incredible. But we can do that on the internet, actually more accurately than we can in a place like Afghanistan. So we're extremely excited about working ever so hard over the next 6 months to really bring this to life. It's its siege year. Where will that go in the future? Very, very exciting, given the terrible situation that is going on for young people, which we're all extremely frightened of. So you see how violence affects us all. It's your children, it's us. We all know about this stuff, and we can change it. The other area is impact profile. I'd love to go into detail. All I want to say to you is you spoke about beautiful things with your values and everything that you spoke about in your speech. And I know that this is at the heart of what we want to do. Doing well by doing good. The wonderful man, Ray Anderson, that I had time to spend time with. You know, the idea that we can make money, but we can also give back. And that's what impact profile is about. If corporations are saying we're about money, but we're also about values and impact, then wouldn't you look at a human being for their values and their impact? Rather than just looking at the person for their academic skills, why not look at them for their contribution to saving humanity? And why wouldn't we measure that in the same way that we'd measure academic skills? That should be the legacy. That should be the future. Isn't he a wonderful woman or a wonderful man? I want to hang with them because of the contribution they're making. The little girl that you spoke about that should win the Nobel Peace Prize, that's absolutely right. And this is exactly what they're thinking about. And this is really exciting for Peace One Day. So this is where we're going. This is our future. We celebrate our 20 years at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. We began 20 years in Shakespeare's Globe Theatre with this wonderful man, Mark Rylance. Oh, shit, sorry. Oh, sorry about that. Damn. Yeah, with Mark Rylance, who won the Oscar for Bridge of Spies. You probably know him. He's a wonderful, wonderful actor, a dear friend of mine. We launched it 20 years ago, and we're coming back together with Jude Law, who's producing with me, and lots of other wonderful stars to celebrate 20 years of Peace One Day. And finally, our targets are that we want to see young people in all 193 member states united this year. For sure, we will do it. Young people in all countries, all member states of the United Nations, this year will be united. We want to decrease global violence in the cyber world and elsewhere. We want to deliver impact profile, and we want to reach 3 billion people fully aware by 2025. Thank you very much.